our channel just might disappear. The purpose behind extreme political correctness will make you afraid.
Oh, sweet jumping Jesus!
What up? 大家好，我是唢呐. A big shout out to everyone for your likes, shares, and donations, and most importantly, a big shout out to everyone who shared their knowledge and experiences, allowing us to learn some shit. Because after all, we are just two fools trying to figure shit out. And if what we say offends you, then just dismiss us as a couple of idiots.
That's all we ask.
Now, sorry for making you guys wait, but we had to do a lot of homework for this next bit. And we are about to move from extreme PC culture origins to what the purpose of PC culture actually is. And what we discovered made us realize that this channel definitely has an expiration date. And just like our previous series, each episode will be treated like a piece of a puzzle. And as we fit together the entire picture, I think you won't be as angry and hopeless as before, but it's possible you may be scared as fuck.
Oh God, I'm so startled.
So on this episode, we're going to expand a bit on what Yuri Bezmenov described as demoralization. Demoralization is the most important piece of the puzzle. From there, we'll move on to all of the movements under the left umbrella and how they've been mobilized for an ultimate goal. Now, although they stand to benefit, it ain't China or Russia or even the Communist Party. And if you really think deep, I bet you might have already figured it out. And if you think you've got it, leave a comment down below. Alright, so in the spirit of October, let's begin with a Hallgeisa horror series and dive deep into the abyss of blood. So in our previous episode, we had a fan who left a comment claiming that we mistranslated the term demoralization. They suggested that the meaning was actually to remove morality. You see, English is a tricky thing because morality is based on ethics. But when we talk about demoralization, we are actually talking about morale, which is very different than morals. You see, morale is the attitude or feeling of a group towards a particular idea or action. 像是我吃很胖啊，我滚一圈就从板桥滚到新竹啊。那有 morale 的态度是我要减肥，这样才会比较健康。那没有士气的态度是长得怎样，谁可以批评？
How f***ing dare you?
肥胖也是人，我们要尊重，健康是个人的选择，不然先叫大家都戒烟，两个逻辑都是对的。Let me give you another example. This time we'll use hip hop. Take Eminem's "Lose Yourself." This song is about encouragement, overcoming obstacles, and gaining the respect of your peers. Then fast forward to today's emo rap, which features themes of depression, loneliness, anxiety, and self-deletion like this one.
I hope I die with my chains on. If you feel alone, baby, just play this song.
But even then, that just seems like demoralization is based on attitude, right? Well, that's what we thought until we consulted the Encyclopedia for World Problems and Human Potential, which collects, analyzes, and rationalizes issues from around the world. And we found demoralization listed and diagrammed in detail. And then I found a study that made us realize that this shit is actually extremely lethal, yo. According to the National Library of Public Medicine, demoralization actually has psychological and psychiatric implications. Upon encountering demoralization, one can experience feelings of helplessness, meaninglessness, low self-esteem, and even the desire to stop existing. Now, surely this is only affecting a small amount of people, right?
Sure, yeah, that makes sense.
But then I caught the tail end of Jordan Peterson's latest interview.
I want to ask you just quickly, the film director Olivia Wilde has a new movie out, which she says is based on you, this insane man, this pseudo-intellectual hero to the incel community. Incel being these weirdo loner men who are despicable in many ways. Is that you? Are you the intellectual hero to these people?
Sure, why not? You know, people have been after me for a long time because I've been speaking to disaffected young men. You know, what a terrible thing to do that is. I thought the marginalized were supposed to have a voice.
It's making you emotional. Talk about that.
Well, God, you know, it's very difficult to understand how demoralized people are. And certainly many young men are in that category. And you get these casual insults, these incels, is what does it mean? It's like, well, these men, they don't know how to make themselves attractive to women who are very picky, and good for them. Women, like, be picky. That's your gift, man. Demand high standards from your men. Fair enough. But all these men who are alienated, it's like they're lonesome and they don't know what to do, and everyone piles abuse on them. It's really something to see constantly. How many people are dying for lack of an encouraging word? And how easy it is to provide that if you're careful. You know, give credit where credit is due. And to say, you're a net force for good if you want to be.
Do you believe you're a net force for good?
Net, yes. In all the details, probably not. You know, no one's perfect. So people make their mistakes as they stumble uphill.
Now, I remember feeling this way when I was young, and I felt like the loneliest person in the world. So is JP right? 台湾男生，你们现在也是这样觉得吗? Share your experience in the comments down below. Now, not 24 hours after JP's interview dropped, there were a lot of so-called feminists, and I use that term loosely, who laughed at him and responded with comments like this.
Isn't he supposed to be a traditional Western masculine man? Why is he crying over some mean words, boo-hoo Jordan? The way Jordan Peterson cries about incels being misunderstood men who don't know how to make themselves attractive to women, then doesn't understand why people hate him. Jordan, babe incels are murdering women because we say no to them.
This
kind of funny and sad to me that a bunch of these right-wing dudes see these talking heads like Jordan Peterson or Andrew Tate as replacements for their absent father.
And this.
I admitted I'm not perfect, so that makes me almost perfect.
But Jordan needs a therapist too.
Yes.
Jesus, it's like the same people that say that men are toxic and need to express their emotions are the first ones to ridicule a man once they do.
I'm just like extremely hypocritical in that way.
But I digress. Let's not go after them today. They'll get their day on another好机车 episode very soon. So, on to our second piece of the puzzle, a phenomenon known as cognitive dissonance. This happens whenever information comes in direct conflict with what you personally believe. Based on biomedical research which observed the brain during an occurrence of cognitive dissonance, they found that two areas of the brain light up simultaneously. The first one, the insula, controls your emotions, and the emotions that occur are anger, anxiety, and hostility. And then there's a second one, the DLPFC, which controls cognition and logic. Now this part of the brain is trying to rationalize the new information that it's receiving. And the stronger your belief, and the longer you've been entrenched in an ideology, the more active these two parts of the brain become, which means the more angry and hostile you become. For example, let's say your boyfriend or your girlfriend have been together for years and you love each other deeply. And suddenly you find out that he or she has been cheating on your best friend for years. Insert the cognitive dissonance here. Dr. Leon Festinger, an American social psychologist who created the cognitive dissonance theory, later designed a set of experiments to test his forced compliance theory, which basically means that someone of higher authority can convince someone of little or no authority to behave in a manner that is against their best interests.
Let me see your identification.
You don't need to see his identification.
We don't need to see his identification.
And he later concluded that whenever your behavior is inconsistent with your thoughts, then you will change your attitude to match your behavior. Now, I highly recommend that after watching our video, you go and check out the two links in the description down below. It is some really good shit. And also, if there are any experts on the matter who would know a bit more about this subject than we do, you're welcome to share your comments and insights in the comments down below. So now that you understand how we can incite cognitive dissonance in an individual via forced compliance, based on what we learned from Yuri Bezmenov, in theory, one could use these psychological phenomenons to create demoralization.
Perhaps you're right.
Which brings me to today's unlikely protagonist. a person who admittedly was in a prolonged state of demoralization until she took it upon herself to figure things out and accidentally ended up in a prolonged and furious state of cognitive dissonance. Famed author Nora Vincent, a lesbian and radical feminist who staunchly believed that women were oppressed by the patriarchy and that all men benefited from it, decided to prove her beliefs by spending nearly 2 years pretending to be a man. Now, she didn't just put on a suit and tie and cut her hair short. Homegirl spent a year lifting weights, taking vocal lessons, and even hired a movement coach, all so that she could actively pass as a man in society in an attempt to reap the benefits of the patriarchy and show men for the toxically masculine privileged animals that they are. And afterwards, she published a tell-all book titled Self-Made Man. Now, I bet you're dying, no pun intended, to find out what she wrote. Well, I read the whole thing twice, and I'm going to share a few passages with you right now. When this man who I'd never met shook my hand, he gave me something real. He included me. But most of the women I'd ever shaken hands with or even hugged had held something back, as if we were in constant competition with each other or secretly suspicious, knowing it but not knowing it, and going through the motions all the same. It was more affectionate than any handshake I'd ever received from a strange woman. To me, woman-to-woman introductions often seemed fake and cold, full of limp gentility. I've seen a lot of women hug one another this way too, sometimes even women who've known each other for a long time and think themselves as being good friends. They're like two backward magnets pushed together by convention. Their arms and cheeks meet, and maybe the tops of their shoulders, but only briefly, the briefest time politeness will allow. It's done out of habit and for appearances, a hollow and even resentful gesture bred into us and rarely felt. This solidarity of sex was something that feminism tried to teach us, and something, it now seemed to me, that men figured out and perfected a long time ago. On some level, men didn't need to learn or remind themselves that brotherhood was powerful. It was just something they seemed to know. Now, ladies, don't shoot the messenger. This is what she wrote. But seriously, I showed this to my female friends and they were all silent after reading it. But I want to know what our lady viewers think. Is she wrong? Does she have a point? Share your experiences down below. As I lived snippets of a male life, one part of my brain was duly taking notes and making observations, intellectualizing the raw material of Ned's experience, but another part of my brain, the subconscious part, was taking blows to the head, and eventually those injuries caught up with me. Now in this section, you can see that Nora is going through some serious cognitive dissonance because the feminist ideologies that she subscribed to for so long were in direct conflict with what she was experiencing in the real world. And after her experiences, she suffered heavily from anxiety, hopelessness, and an overwhelming desire to cease to exist. Sound familiar? Now Nora Vincent later shared her feelings in this interview.
Men are suffering. They have different problems than women have, but they don't have it better. They need our sympathy, they need our love, and they need each other more than anything else. They need to be together.
Do you think women understand what it's like to be a man?
Not at all. No clue.
Sounds fair, right? But real talk, Nora Vincent dared to do many of the things the people in her own community wouldn't dare to. What started out as an expose on men's privilege ended up being an essay on men's suffering. And in the end, she was dismissed and attacked by her own feminist allies. In fact, the only people from the left that showed her overwhelming support was the trans community. Distraught from her experiences and the long-term deception, she made her first failed attempt at self-deletion. But earlier this year, just 3 months ago, she was finally successful after entering an assisted deletion program in Switzerland. 说呢，你说的太极端呢。Are you saying that all modern feminists are the result of forced compliance? Nah, bruh. We're gonna get to the bottom of that in a later episode. And what you'll discover is that although these extreme feminists are being demoralized, it's not by who you think.
Keep your friends close, but your enemies closer.
Once upon a time, our Weed's grandfather once told him, "Yo, nigga, if you ever find yourself confronted with a ghost, run directly towards that nigga and try to see him clearly." And in the case of extreme PC culture, we at 好机车 are trying to do the exact same thing. Because it is only when you see the other side clearly that you can understand where they come from, what they're thinking, how to communicate, and possibly even how to find common ground. So now that you have basic insight into cognitive dissonance and how dangerous demoralization can be, in our next episode, we'll examine why so many extreme feminists seemingly hate men.
It is not just the guys in Los Angeles, Nashville, Dallas. They're not any better in the Midwest. They, quite frankly, I think they're trash all over this country in the age range of about 20 to I think about 55, maybe even 60. A lot of men are trash.
And we'll also get to know this woman who, inspired by Kevin Samuels, created one of the fastest growing podcasts for women wanting to understand men in the real world.
Why is it easier to be a man when men...
I mean, the gender pay gap just says it all.
I'll give you an example. My dad's the top half a percentage of earners. I think he worked 80 hours a week my whole life. I didn't get to see him. Like, he earned that. Is that the patriarchy, or did women not choose to do that?
If you had a exact female replica, she likely would not get where he is. It's the only way we could argue it.
Right,
but it doesn't take away from his efforts. It doesn't take away from that.
So then why do we talk about it at all? You have no idea why there's a pay gap.
And in addition, we'll show you some of the greatest words of wisdom from the world's most toxically masculine man, the youngest heavyweight champion of the world, Mike Tyson.
We look for our mother and our lover, but our mother could never be our lover because our lover would never love us like our mother. It's not in no woman to love us like our mother loves us. It's not in her.
Yeah, it wasn't in her. It wasn't in her, man.
So stay tuned. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, and we will see you on the flip side. Peace.